So there's a lot of speculation about the chemical attack in Syria. Um, the base that the chemical attack was launched from, the Al Sharat base in Syria, it's not completely clear yet whether or not there was even chemical weapons at that base. Um, I think there were. There's some evidence now that there was. The Russians are saying that there isn't. That there basically isn't any chemical weapons there, or wasn't any chemical weapons there. Um, and then, of course, what the Russians are also saying is that the base that they attacked was a rebel uh, uh, weapons base, a rebel weapons base that had the chemical weapons stored there. So that's what caused the chemical event, was them actually destroying that base, um, which is which is definitely a possibility. But there's a lot of people who think that in one way or another, the chemical attack was a false flag event, to blame Assad. And there's been some prominent people who've come out and voiced this opinion. But now there's been a very high profile figure who has come out and said that this is the case. And that is none other than Vladimir Putin himself. So this is from InfoWars. Putin, Syria chemical attack was false flag, more coming. Russian President Vladimir Putin has claimed that the recent chemical attack in Idlib province in Syria was a false flag operation and that more provocations are being prepared. Quote, "We have reports from multiple sources that false flags like this one, and I cannot call it otherwise, are being prepared in other parts of Syria, including the southern suburbs of Damascus," Putin said during a joint press conference with Italian President Sergio Mattarella in Moscow. They plan to plant some chemicals there and accuse the Syrian government of an attack, Putin told media representatives, adding that he has, quote, trusted sources. Putin went on to compare the situation in Syria to Saddam Hussein's non-existent weapons of mass destruction, indicating that he may believe that the U.S. is either behind the false flag or at least actively pushing such propaganda while the anti-government rebels in Syria carried out the attack. So far, what we know about the attack is that, it was in the Idlib region, that the airstrike was from the Shirat base. Now, it's unclear what type of chemical was even used. So the media and the official narrative is that it was sarin gas. Now, the problem with that is they're saying it's weaponized sarin gas, and when you look at some of the videos and some of the pictures, the people who are supposedly exposed to this sarin gas are being taken care of by people who in some cases aren't even wearing gloves. Now, the problem with that is that if you get any of the weaponized sarin gas on your skin, you'll basically die. So people would need to be in, a much higher level of protective gear to be able to be doing that. It's much more likely that it was a chlorine gas attack of some sort, or maybe some type of homebrew sarin of some sort. But it's unlikely that it was actually weaponized sarin, based on that evidence. And again, it's unclear whether or not there was chemical weapons at the base that the attack was launched from. So, out of all the evidence that we've got, it looks like more than likely the Russian narrative is probably true to an extent. I think they're probably lying about the chemical weapons in the base, but I think they may very well be telling the truth about it being a normal strike on that rebel base that had those chemical weapons, probably the chlorine or whatever it happened to be. And then, of course, the media and everybody else jumped on that situation to blame Assad. But it would make no sense in a tactical way um, to do that. There'd be no reason for him to do that chemical attack when Trump has come out and said that that is basically his red line as well. But unlike Obama, if Assad did that, he would actually follow through on it. And again, the 2013, 2014 red line that was crossed was shown to be more than likely the rebels staging that event. And the rebels have been caught multiple times staging these events, like 4 or 5 times, I think, staging these events to try to basically blame, Assad. So, they've been caught again and again and again. It makes no sense for Assad to do this. There's a lot of unanswered questions, but the evidence we have so far points towards it probably being, an event that was done on accident, not deliberately. They more than likely didn't know that those chemical weapons were there at that base, if that's what happened, because the rebels, again, are not supposed to have those chemical weapons, but they do, thanks to Hillary Clinton and others, funneling them from Libya through Turkey. So, it's definitely a complex situation, and now you've got Vladimir Putin, of all people, coming out and saying that it's basically a staged event. So, absolutely insane. The military campaign was subsequently launched in Iraq, and it ended with the devastation of the country, the growth of the terrorist threat, and the appearance of the Islamic State, IS, formerly ISIS, on the world stage, Putin added. All incidents reminiscent of the chemical attacks that took place in Idlib must be thoroughly investigated, Putin concluded, also clarifying that he has no scheduled meeting with Rex Tillerson, who is on his way to Russia. In addition, the Russian General Staff has said that Syrian forces possess no chemical weapons, and that further U.S.-Syria strikes will be viewed as unacceptable. So yeah, definitely the Russian aggression is, amping up. They basically moved one of their warships to pretty much block the ones that launched the Tomahawk strike, and they're saying that, if another strike like that is launched, that they will basically shoot down the missiles. The Russians ripped up a agreement with our Air Force to, conduct their flight paths, basically, so they don't fly into each other and stuff. They ripped up that agreement, and there's a lot of very hawkish rhetoric going around all over the place. So definitely a dangerous situation on that end. But you've also got another, fairly high-profile person who has come out and just, talked about the situation where how this may be a false flag event, but even if it's not, how now that the Assad, regime was blamed for the chemical attack, how the rebels will probably use this event to, it's going to make it more likely that more false flags would occur, and that the rebels would try to, do a false flag event to blame Assad now that, they see that Trump is willing to actually act on this in a way that Obama wasn't able to. Wasn't able to is the key thing, because he wanted to. The Air Force came out and said that they didn't want to be Al-Qaeda's Air Force, basically. So it was the military that opposed that, then at least. So, it's a pretty serious situation. And now you've got, from the Information Liberation, former UK ambassador. Trump has just given jihadis 1,000 reasons to stage false flag operations. Former British ambassador to Syria Peter Ford told the BBC on Friday chemical weapons are now more likely to be used in Syria because jihadis know a fake flag, that's a new one, attack will trigger the US to attack Assad. Quote, it's not going to end here because Trump has just given the jihadis 1,000 reasons to stage false flag operations, Ford said. Seeing how successful and how easy it is with a gullible media to provoke the West into intemperate reactions, they will very likely stage an operation similar to what they did, and this was documented by the United Nations in August last year. They mounted a chlorine gas attack on civilians, and they tried to make it look like it was a regime operation, he said. Mark my words, you are hearing it here, and it will happen, Ford said. And we'll get all the warmongers coming to tell us that Assad is defying us and that we must go in more heavily into Syria. This will be fake flag. Again, with the fake flag, that's an interesting one. It's always been false flag, but I guess this guy's switching it up a little bit. But yeah, so, you've got the former British ambassador to Syria, pretty, high profile guy coming out and saying that, because of this event, it's more likely that there's going to be more chemical attacks, especially if it actually was somehow an orchestrated event by the rebels that was then jumped on by the Trump administration. And it's not clear that that's what happened. Again, it's not completely clear what happened one way or the other with this situation. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. But the one thing that is still pretty clear, at least to me, is that it's very unlikely that it was Assad deliberately that did this. So the war drums are beating for sure because of this event, and I've talked about a little bit why Trump did this, and I think there was multiple reasons. I mean, deep down, at the end of the day, we can't read his mind. We don't know 100% what his motives are behind this. I mean, there's articles out that say that Ivanka Trump came in, his daughter, and showed him pictures of the dead babies and said, look how horrible this is, and that really was a key part of having him make that decision, influencing that decision. But I think there was multiple reasons. Whether or not Trump knew exactly what went on, what happened, who knows? Obviously, he has intel, tons of intel that we, as the general public, don't have available to us. But at the same time, you do have a lot of neocons that are surrounding Trump. You've got a lot of people like H.R. McMaster, who is a guy who definitely wants to push for a ground war in Syria, and he wants to use this event as a pretext for that, the chemical weapons event. And this is an article from Medium.com. H.R. McMaster, manipulating intelligence reports to Trump, wants 150,000 ground soldiers in Syria. Current National Security Advisor Herbert Raymond, H.R. McMaster, is manipulating intelligence reports given to President Donald Trump, Cernovich Media can now report. McMaster is plotting how to sell a massive ground war in Syria to President Trump with the help of disgraced former CIA and convicted criminal David Petraeus, who mishandled classified information by sharing documents with his mistress. And General Petraeus, mishandled classified information, and he got in all this trouble for it. He wound up, just basically getting a slap on the wrist. But, it was this whole big controversy, and he actually wound up getting in trouble for it. Hillary Clinton does something a million times worse with her email servers, with her email server and all the, deleting it and just all the craziness that went on with that. Loretta Lynch meeting on the plane with Bill Clinton. I mean, just all the craziness. Nothing happens there. No one gets in trouble there. So it's just interesting to note that. And if you're the Clintons, you are invincible. You have a get out of jail or just avoid jail altogether card, basically. So I just wanted to point that out. Anyways, it goes on. At NSA, McMaster's job is to synthesize intelligence reports from all other agencies. President Trump is being given an inaccurate picture of the situation in Syria, as McMaster is seeking to involve the U.S. in a full-scale war in Syria. The McMaster Petraeus plan calls for a 150,000 American troops, ground troops in Syria. Many special operations veterans, including General Joseph Votel, have raised serious concerns about McMaster's plan for Syria. Sources also suggest that McMaster is sharing classified information with Petraeus, whose security clearance was revoked. So, according to that report, you've got, McMaster, and he's already openly talked about wanting to do a multiple offensive where they take on the Syrian government and also the basically ISIS as well, and Al-Qaeda, which are pretty much the same thing. And so, he's already openly talked about this, but this report is saying that he's openly, pushing for a 150,000, ground troop action in Syria. So that would be a massive invasion, and, he'd probably be pushing for a full-scale push into Damascus to just basically completely obliterate Assad. And that's just a completely dangerous and crazy situation to get into. And you've got, John McCain, Hillary Clinton literally came out from the woods. She's not running around in the woods like Bigfoot anymore. She's back. And, she was talking about how, she would be bombing all these different airfields and doing all this other stuff. And you've got John McCain getting propped up, talking about how we need to push for, overthrowing Assad, and just all these people, talking about overthrowing Assad. And, it wasn't clear what Trump's position on it. Rex Tillerson had come out and said that they pretty much were pushing for a regime change, and so did Nikki Haley, the ambassador, and Sean Spicer as well. But then Trump came out. Trump has just came out and sort of alleviated some concerns. So this is from The Hill. Trump, we're not going into Syria. A direct quote. President Trump said Tuesday the U.S. will not launch a full-scale war in Syria, seeking to ease concerns that last week's missile strike could escalate American involvement in the country's civil war. Quote, we're not going into Syria, Trump said in an interview with Fox Business Network. Trump suggested his decision last week to launch 59 cruise missiles at a Syrian airbase used in a sarin gas attack was purely intended to curb Syrian leader Bashar Assad's use of chemical weapons against his own people. Quote, but when I see people using horrible chemical weapons, which they agreed not to use under the Obama administration, but they violated it, the president said. What I did should have been done with the Obama administration long before I did it, and you would have had a much better, I think Syria would be a lot better off right now than it has been. So that is a very good thing to hear for someone like me, because I'm really concerned about this situation in Syria and the way it's being handled, because you've got all these people around Trump who are pushing for a full-scale invasion of Syria, who are pushing for for more conflict in Syria, and that would almost certainly lead to conflict with Russia. So it's really good to hear Trump coming out and pushing back against a lot of that rhetoric. And one of the key things that happened here, and one of the reasons that I think President Trump did this, one of the reasons I think he did this is to send a message. I think he did this to send a message to China and to North Korea. And a lot of people are on the same page with this. Also, of course, one clear thing that happened with this is it completely shattered the Russian narrative. But the message that it sent to China is that if China doesn't do something about North Korea, Trump is willing to do something about them. And you have seen, as a direct result of that, reactions from both North Korea and China. And I want to illustrate that a little bit. So this is from khou.com. North Korea says Syria airstrikes prove its nukes justified. North Korea has vowed to bolster its defenses to protect itself against airstrikes like the one President Donald Trump ordered against an airbase in Syria. The North called the airstrikes, quote, absolutely unpardonable, and said they would prove its nuclear weapons are justified to protect the country against Washington's ever more reckless moves for war. The comments were made by a foreign ministry official and carried out Sunday by North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency. The report did not name the official, which is common in KCNA reports. So you've got North Korea, of all people, coming out and saying that what Trump did justifies them having nukes. Absolutely insane when they are completely belligerent, launching, missiles, right next to Japan every other day, threatening South Korea, threatening to nuke the United States, and, openly threatening to nuke the United States, and their intercontinental ballistic missile program is getting to the point where they would be able to possibly hit Hawaii, or to hit Japan, or to do who knows what, and they're progressing on their missile system to getting to that point where they can load a nuke onto it and be able to strike. And they're openly saying that they're going to. That is complete belligerence, and that's something that needs to be taken care of. And of course, they are basically run by China. They are China's puppet regime. And this sent a clear message to China. Of course, North Korea is just absolutely doubling down on the belligerence. But then China responded. And that response was quite decisive and, I must say, shocking. From the Daily Mail, China deploys 150,000 troops to deal with possible North Korean refugees over fears Trump may strike Kim Jong Un following missile attack on Syria. The Chinese army has reportedly deployed 150,000 troops into the North Korean border to prepare for preemptive attacks after the United States dropped airstrikes on Syria. President Donald Trump's missile strike on Syria on Friday was widely interpreted as a warning to North Korea. And now, China, left shocked by the airstrikes, has deployed medical and backup units from the People's Liberation Army forces to the Yalu River, Korea's Chosen.com reported. The troops have been dispatched to handle North Korea's refugees in unforeseen circumstances as the prospect of preemptive attacks on North Korea, the news agency said. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy has carried the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier strike group from Singapore to North Korea after the country conducted more missile testing. So, yeah, I mean, you've got all this craziness coming from North Korea, launching missiles every other day, saying they're going to nuke everybody, and, President Trump comes out and he says, we're not going to be like the Obama administration and just sit back and allow this, we're going to do something about it. And China's role in this whole thing is key. So to see that sort of a response is definitely very meaningful. That definitely shows that the message that President Trump sent was absolutely received by the Chinese, and it actually gets even better. So this is from Zero Hedge. China threatens to bomb North Korea's nuclear facilities if it crosses Beijing, quote, bottom line. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you actually have China threatening to bomb North Korea. I mean, this is crazy. We are not in Kansas anymore. With everyone putting down new and or revised red lines, be it on Syria or North Korea, it was now China's turn to reveal its, quote, red or rather bottom line in a harshly worded editorial, quote, the United States must not choose a wrong direction to break the DPRK nuclear deadlock on Wednesday. Beijing warned it would attack North Korea's facilities producing nuclear bombs, effectively engaging in an act of war if North Korea crosses China's, quote, bottom line. The editorial in the military-focused Global Times tabloid, owned and operated by the Communist People's Party daily newspaper, isn't that lovely, said the North Korea's nuclear activities must not jeopardize northeastern China, and that if the North impacts China with its illicit nuclear tests through either, quote, nuclear leakage or pollution, then China will respond with force. Quote, China has a bottom line that it will protect at all costs, that is, the security and stability of Northeast China. If the bottom line is touched, China will employ all means available, including the military means, to strike back. By that time, it is not an issue of discussion whether China acquiesces to the U.S.'s blows, but the Chinese People's Liberation Army will launch attacks to DPRK nuclear facilities on its own. Wow, that's incredible. This, as the editorial puts it, is the, quote, bottom line for China. Should it be crossed, China will employ all means available, including the military means, to strike back, warned the editorial. The editorial also explained the advantages of the world of a Chinese attack on North Korea's nuclear facilities. So now the Chinese are talking about the advantages of taking out North Korea's nuclear facilities. I mean, this is just insane. It noted China and the world know the locations of North Korea's nuclear facilities. Once the PLA attacks these nuclear sites, North Korea will permanently suspend its nuclear weapons programs. North Korea, quote, has limited resources of nuclear materials and is strictly blockaded in the outside world, erasing the possibility for DPRK to get the materials again. Well, would you look at that? You actually got some common sense coming out of China. So, as I've said, there was definitely some very beneficial aspects to what's going on with that strike on Syria. And I mean, the situation, China's reaction is definitely showing that to be the case. And this is very key because President Trump has been given all options to take out Kim Jong Un, including sending nukes to North Korea or to South Korea, or an assassination on. It wouldn't be an attempt, it would happen, an assassination on Kim Jong Un. And what China just did here is basically gave him the green light. So let me tell you what, a little fat man is probably going down here real soon. Real soon. And that is exactly what needs to happen. So I'll continue to cover the situation as it develops in Syria. Right now we've got a pretty relieving sign from Trump saying that we're not going into Syria. Even though he's got all these people like H.R. McMaster pushing for a 150,000 troop invasion of Syria. So, a little bit of a crisis at least averted for now. It's really good to see that response from Trump. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe and leave a comment if you've got something to say, or you'd like to add to the conversation. You've got any topics that you'd like me to discuss, perhaps. And I look forward to hearing from you. Aside from that, if you want to hear the audio version, I'll have that on SoundCloud. Also, follow me on Twitter or Facebook, and I'll have the links for all that below. Have a wonderful day, and may the force be with you.